Hi, welcome to another Dan's Rest Stop. In the past, I have shared with you my positive, uplifting spiritual experiences, which I believe are connected to the light side of the spiritual realm. I have also had experiences related to the dark side of the spiritual realm. Now, it actually talks about the dark side in the Bible in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, the King James Version. It says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Now, the dark side of the spiritual realm for me falls into kind of three categories: things I've seen them do, and the times I have felt their presence. Now, for things that I have seen, those occurred when I was a child, growing up in an apartment, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, built in the 1880s. And I lived there with my mom and dad and 2 brothers. One night, I remember looking into that area where the window was, where the boxes were, and I remember seeing the face of a demon. What I saw was like an upper body, the face and like the upper body. Now what I did is I got under the covers and tried to hide. Now I don't know how effective that would be, but as a kid, that's probably the first thing you did. Now the other thing I remember seeing is a white image on the floor. And the thing is, I had to go to the bathroom right at that time too. But I saw what looked like, an alligator, a crocodile type thing on the floor, and thinking I had to go to the bathroom. I had to get by this thing in order to go to the bathroom. So I woke up my middle brother and said, "Hey, I need a guard." And I often did that. I'd wake him up and say, "Hey, I need somebody to come with me." And it was more or less, well, somebody could stand out there and guard the door while I was in the bathroom. In fact, I asked him that recently. I said, "Do you remember seeing anything in that apartment? Anything unusual, spiritual type things?" And he said, "All I remember is you kept getting me up to go to the bathroom with you." The ability to see him and see those kind of things left as I got older. This was grammar school, and these things were happening. That was actually the only time I had seen things, was as a child in that apartment. Now, when I talk about seeing what they can do, I've had a few incidents with that too. My wife and I, when we were going to college, had an apartment, and this apartment had something going on in it. I mean, they said it was a garden apartment, but in reality it was really a basement, but that's just a fancy word for it. Anyway, we had things happening in that apartment. We had like salt and pepper shakers that moved across a kitchen table. We had a wine bottle at the edge of the bed, down on the floor. And we were studying one night, and we heard a coin hit the side of the bottle and drop into where the other coins were. Now, my wife had a plastic bag that she folded up to put up on a closet shelf, and the bag flew out of there. It just, like someone didn't want it there and just throw it back at her, and it came across and hit the bed. So these are the type of things that I saw there in that apartment. Now, I also saw some things at Sutter's Fort. I worked at Sutter's Fort in the trade store for a few years. And the fort, if you look at the history of the fort, it was like an 1840s type fort. And if you want to do research on it, it had a connection to the Donner Party in 1847 and the discovery of gold in 1848. Anyway, this trade store, we sold souvenirs to groups that would come through. There was a cash register on the counter, and then across from the cash register was a bookshelf where we were selling historical books. Well, one day when I was in there, a mom and her daughter were there. The mom was at one end of the store and the daughter was at the other end. And the mom called the daughter over to her. And when the daughter walked by, she walked by me on her way to her mother, books came out of the bookshelf. I mean, they just came out. And the mom looked up and she said, "What did you do?" And I said, "She didn't do anything. The books just came off the shelf." So, and another thing that happened in there was the cash register was hooked up to a printer, a little printer to print receipts. And we'd turn off the cash register at night when we went home. Well, one morning we came in and there was printer paper all over the counter, even though the machine was turned off. So that's where I've seen evidence of things they can do. Now, the feeling of the presence, I've had that happen too. And one place that happened was when I was stationed at Fort Ord in 1970, 71. This was in 70 that this happened, towards the latter part of 1970. And I was in a two-story barracks, and the trainees for the course were in the middle of the barracks. At the edge of the barracks was there were rooms. There was a small room on both sides, and there was like 2 beds in each room, and I was in one of the rooms by myself at the time. Anyway, I was facing the wall towards the outside, and suddenly I felt this presence. It felt like somebody was in the room with me, and it wasn't a good feeling. It was fear, a dark feeling. So I got to find out who's here. So I turned and there was nothing there. Now this happened a few times in there, so I don't know what went on in that room, but something was wrong there. Now, another place where I felt a presence was at Sutter's Fort when I worked there. Now, what happened was when I first started there, we had to change into our clothing for that time period. And there was a place where we were supposed to change. And it was like in a corner. It was near the gun repair shop and the blacksmith shop. Anyway, it was kind of being used like a storage room. Anyway, when I would go in there, I always felt that there was something there, some evil thing, something. Once again, you'd feel fear and evil presence, nothing positive about it. So the thing I wanted to tell you about is the mistakes that I made with all those experiences. I never asked for God's help. I never reached out to God or Jesus or the Holy Spirit. I don't recall ever reaching out for God's help to deal with it. I mean, what did I do? As a child, I put the covers over my head, which really didn't do a whole lot. Or I asked my brother to go be a security guard with me to the bathroom, or in the apartment that my wife and I were in. Instead of asking God for help, we borrowed a Ouija board, which that was a big mistake. In fact, we never used a Ouija board again. Anyway, that's all for now.